Probably like.
Putting you on the spot there.
Well, we were at Rio Hatta, Panama, gunnery school, and it's funny, they let you shoot all different types of things, and BB guns, machine guns, and then dragging a target, shooting at a target with different color ammunition to see whose ammunition it was, flying up in a plane and trying to get the canister into the machine gun, which is a little bit ridiculous. The whole thing was ridiculous, because in 10 minutes I could tell you what to do in the way of shooting. They wasted a lot of time, because actual combat is nothing like that. The guys that had to fight with fighters, they had to learn because those fighters came in toward the nose and the tail and different things. And I have a book here that says, "Get That Fighter," but it's all ridiculous. And when it comes right down to it, well, mine was ridiculous, because all they did was sit out there and kill you. That was a very funny feeling I had when they first opened fire at me. Why are they shooting at me? Why are they, why are they shooting before I got into action myself? It's strange, like, hey, this is it. They're picking on me. It's a strange feeling.
You take it personal, almost.
Yeah. I was almost, why are they doing this to me? Like they say, why you buy me, Gus? Yeah, it's strange.
In that, what would you say was worse though? Was the fighters or the flak? I guess in terms of, well, before you got shot down, obviously after you're getting shot down, you say the fighters, but before that, in terms of apprehension or fear or whatever.
Flak, I think, flak, because it's so impersonal. The other is very personal. It's me against you, but the flak doesn't care who you are. It's very impersonal, and they're just shooting it up. And we on the plane had boxes of this chaff, which is aluminum, like Christmas tree dressing, the foil. And they'd say, make like snow, and the radio man was supposed to get hands full and throwing it overboard. My assistant engineer, he took the whole box and threw it overboard. It was, because it used to screw up their radar, and so whenever you were down on the ground as a prisoner, you could see all around you. It was like you were dressing all the trees with tinsel. It worked. The guns would go crazy. They would know which was a plane and which wasn't.
Why did he throw the whole box? He just panicked.
He thought maybe a box is better than just a handful.
Oh boy. I guess getting into some of the early stuff. You were in Panama. You were on the B-18s.
Yes.
And I guess paint a picture for me, if you can, of just because you went in 1939. Right?
Yes.
And so you were there, I guess, for almost 2 years before the attack, before Pearl Harbor, and we were actually. No,
it was in Panama for, I don't know, possibly a year, and then Trinidad, and then Guyana, and we were having lunch in Guyana, and I got the news that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor, and so I walked out with my mess kit. We had a thin table where we ate standing up on, and they had the outdoor kitchen. And you'd get your food and you walk to the table and set your mess kit down there. And I said to the sergeants there, I said, they attacked Pearl Harbor. What are you talking about, Pearl Harbor? They couldn't attack Pearl Harbor, but it's the strongest base we ever had. They couldn't possibly. I said, okay. Then he came out, and from that time on, I was there about 6 months before that happened, and we were still stuck. I never had gotten home in my entire service. 3 years I hadn't been home. And this guy came through, and he thought, some guy comes running into the barracks. He says, they're giving tests for pilots, people who want to go for pilot training. I said, you take it? He said, yeah, I passed. I said, you passed? Let me out of here. So I went in there and I passed. Yeah. And they shipped us out of there. We got on a DC-4 and flew to Miami and had a delay en route to New York and saw my family there. And then went on to Tennessee, Southern training, some private organization training for training, and then to Maxwell Field, then Washington. But I tried. The heck, they washed me out. They saved my life because possibly you could have killed yourself.
What was your ultimate goal, I guess, when you got into flight training for a pilot? Like, what was your dream? What did you expect to be doing?
Anything, just flying. I didn't, you know, some guys said fire, some said bombers. Didn't matter to me.
You said you wanted to be up there.
Yeah.
How was the process, I guess, of getting washed out? What happened that you ended up doing what?
This guy took me up on it. I have a flight book with all the different flights, and I was ready. I personally was ready for the solo. And the day before I was to go up, this guy ground looped into the ground, and this guy did this, so they held back a little, and I never got to solo it.
Tell me about that flight, because that's one thing, I guess. I don't know if you talked about that while the camera was rolling, but how it happened that
we had gone up, and we had did a few loops and maneuvers and spin, which I loved, where you pull back on a stick, kick your right throttle, and go into a spin. I love that. And then he killed the engine and said, and that stick landed. And I looked around, saw what I had to as far as the wind direction, and looked for a place to set it down. It was farmland, most of it, corn. So I circled till I got into position over this fence, let it over the fence, and started into the corn. And he gave it the throttle. And because of the way I had settled down into that, I was told that I should have figure 8 instead of circling the way I did. In my mind, I figured this is the way I'm going to set it up, and this is the way I want to come in. But he said, you could have lost speed and could have stalled out. I said, I was aware of that. That's why I was spiraling, keeping the nose down and so on and so forth. But it didn't work. At any rate, they had their own reasons. And so that I didn't fight it. I let it go.
So at that point, right away, did you get, I guess, trained as an engineer, or should you be trained as?
No, I was an engineer before.
Oh, you were already, right?
Yes, I was a sergeant before that. And so they were shipped out to, where did I go from there? Salt Lake City. And we started getting crews together for, they said first, you want to go for navigator or something? I said, no, that didn't interest me. Bombardier navigator. And we continued on and picked up my crew in Salt Lake City.
Tell me about that process, I guess, of getting the crew on the plane and everything else.
Well, we sort of were thrown together, and I don't know what the process is, but there we were, and there were so many mishaps in Salt Lake City. The crews were green, the pilots were green. They would turn into a dead engine crash, lots of crashes. A lot of people killed in training. The planes were old, B-17. And one particular mission that we were on, we were to fly to see, not Minnesota, Montana, on the navigational mission, and we flew north towards Montana, and we turned around, and still didn't know where we were. And as usual, the conditions were snowy, and we could pick up radio transmission at different places, and we didn't know where we were. So we're flying along, and night already, and we're heading south again, southeast, southwest. And the pilot says to me, "Ed, get everybody lined up at the door with their parachutes on." He said, "I don't know where we are." And he said, "Check them out, you know." So I got everybody out there and checked their parachutes. And I came back. He said, "I'm going down lower. So I'm going to let down." And we went down lower. He turns on the landing lights, and the snow was blowing there. So it's funny. The women on the could be heard clearer than the men in the. So as he's ready to send out a mayday, didn't know what to do. So he says, "Let's go down and look for one of the lights up for an airport, you know." And so we're out in the wilderness in Montana here, and we're flying along, and off in the distance there's this little strobe light. So he says, "There's something there. We'll head for that." So we head for that, and we're out of gas practically. And we get there, and he sees that we fly by, and he takes our flash, our light, signal light, and he signals the tower to put on a light. No response. So it comes around, swings around the back, and zooms over the tower, and all the lights in the place run all over the place. And he comes around again, and he lands. And we taxi up. One of the engines cut out of fuel. We taxi up to the administration building, and the Jeep runs out, and the pilot looks out. He says, "Where the hell are we?" The guy says, "Lincoln, Nebraska." And it's a funny thing, because it wasn't a little bit later that we went back to Lincoln, Nebraska to get on it. They were all lined up. They're brand new B-17s as far as the eye could see. We went back there to pick up our new B-17 and fly it overseas.
All the way from Montana to Lincoln, Nebraska.
We were just looking for something to eat. Oh, God.
Tell me a little bit about your crew. You mentioned Hill, and I guess tell me his full name and give me a description about him a little bit. I can't remember the name. I got a block with them. I don't know why. Just Carl Caputo, Eunice, Gill, Hill. Winslow was the pilot. John P. Hill.
Yeah, John Hill. And I didn't know these people. In the Army, you meet people, you lose them. You go here, you're different people. You're always seeing different people, so you never really get into a deep friendship with anybody, as you might with, say, an infantry outfit where you're trained together. You still depend on each other. We all did our jobs, went about our jobs, and it was a pretty good outfit. We knew our airplane and everything else. But it's strange, as I mentioned before, when these people die all around you and you're still in a predicament, you're not so much thinking about the death as you are saving your own tail. So it isn't until later that it really hits you full, geez, look what happened to these people. But that's the way it was.
He did seem to have some trouble, though, being a navigator. It sounds like he
Well, he came over from the army. He was in the army, regular army, and he decided to get into the Air Force. And he wrote some information a little later to me about how out of the 27 planes that joined the group that were in England, that only 3 or 4, 2 I believe, were left after it was all over, and everybody else was killed, or shot down, or prisoner. That when we got to Stoke-on-Trent in England, I applied for a bicycle and silverware. I didn't have any silverware. They said, "Oh, wait a few days, we'll have some." Then I realized what was happening. These crews were getting knocked down every day, and so the silverware and the other stuff had come along through that way.
Did you kind of pass down to you guys, I guess?
Yeah, yeah. First night there, we had an air raid. You know what happened then? All the guys were standing out there looking up. They didn't know but the cannons were going off and all over, and lights and everything. Now the guys were urinating. It hit them right in the bladder. Really, that's what happened. It was scary. Not seeing the planes, not knowing, they could have been bombing our airbase for all we knew. But it wasn't anywhere near us. But it was scary as hell. I can imagine how it feels at night, you can hear the swish of the bombs, actually.
And it's everybody reacted biologically.
Yeah.
What was your trip like? I guess you flew as one crew already from after you got your aircraft in Nebraska.
That's another odyssey.
Tell me about that.
Well, we took off from Lincoln, and I remember flying over Toledo, Ohio, and we were coming into was it Rhode Island? Yeah, Rhode Island, I believe. We were supposed to land there to gas up. And as usual, it was freezing. And when we went down to lower altitude, lower our landing gear, we had the ices working on the wings. And the right landing wheel wouldn't come down. Brand new. This plane on the way out where we were flew on one engine. We stayed aloft with one engine. We shut the other down. And it was beautiful. But the landing gear wouldn't come down. So we called the tower and they said, well, try, So the pilot jerking the plane around trying to shake it loose. Ed, see what you can do. Got my trusty wheel crank out again, the one with the bomb bay, and I started to crank the wheel down from inside. You could see that in one of the movies that they made where the wheel wouldn't come down. But this is a brand new airplane. And I'll crank it. Finally, I just couldn't budge it anymore. And I went back to the pilot. He says, is the wheel down? I said, yeah. He says, is it locked? I said, how the hell do I know? I said, I just wound it down. And I said, from the belly turret, I could see that the wheel is down. They both look even. So I said, oh, here it goes. So we came in for a landing, and it stood up. The wheel was locked. And it comes to a stop, and I jump out of the plane. And ice is falling off the wings. And I jump up on the tire into the nacelle where the wheel comes up. And I had, we used to have the pin with a red ribbon on it that we put through 2 holes and lock it in place. And I look up there, and there looked like a starter motor in a car up in the top. And the gears are coming out of the box. Whoever inspected the plane didn't check. Now, every bolt on an aircraft has a hole through the head, so that when you put the bolt in and tighten the bolt, you put a wire, the brass wire through, and then you lock it so that the vibration doesn't allow the nut to loosen. They didn't have that. And the whole back of the motor was coming out, the gears were showing. And how it came down, how I really managed to do it. And what I was doing was pushing the gears out of the thing. But we landed. So we were there. It's the first time I saw a whack. We got friendly with them, and I told them that they'd go up and talk one of them into going up on a test flight when we finished. But we figured to put a parachute and a heavy woolen jacket on, a helmet on. They wouldn't know who the heck it was. And time to come to get on the plane, they said, well, take off, go to Newfoundland, Nova Scotia. Forget about testing here. You tested in the air. Oh, you were going there. So she's lucky she didn't get on the plane. Yeah, well, so that was another little experience on the way. These things always popped up.
How was your flight into England? I guess you guys went through.
Yeah, well, I had one little mishap. I bought a bunch of cans of soup when we left the States and put them on the plane. And the plane had one of these escape kits with the little legs that stay on the snow and you burn the, I don't know what the material is that you light up. So I did that on a plane. I asked the pilot, "You like some chicken soup?" He said, no, nobody wanted it. So I went into the Bombay and I started this little fire. And then the chicken soup going. And it filled the plane with the aroma. Oh. So all of a sudden I got calls. Everybody wanted soup. And we're about halfway over the ocean, and I'm standing like this, for hours like this, between the planes. And all of a sudden, I smell smoke, and my arm begins to burn. The damn flying electric suit, like an electric blanket, by keeping my arms folded for so long, it began to heat up in the fold. They were burning. I couldn't get that thing off fast enough. But luckily, as the sun came up, there was a Spitfire came out to greet us, and we landed in Scotland. Beautiful. The ground, the farms and everything was nice to see. And they took our airplane away from us.
The brand new B-17, they took it from you.
A B-17G with the nose guns and the new turret and the nose and chin. They took it away from us.
Why did they do that? Do you know?
They sent us on. We were more like delivery boys than anything else. We got to the squadron. They gave us this old full house. It was a piece of junk that they probably brought back on the truck several times. It was a beat up plane.
So you guys didn't get to name your plane?
No, it had a name.
The one you brought over?
Yeah, full house.
Oh, you had named it Full House, the one that you had to turn over.
No, no name on that one.
Oh, so you guys, because that was usually, I guess they got the names when you guys were still in the States, and then you fly them over.
Well, the guys that used the plane usually named them.
Right.
And so we got a plane that somebody had left over. God.
Wow. So you don't know anything about the story of the name or anything like that?
Yes, it's because of the tail numbers. 3 4s and 2 2s, something like that.
And what model was it? B-17, I guess. What model?
Just the original model. It's just the plain B-17. I never knew it as anything else. The only thing is the G I knew was because of the chin turret, the front turret.
And you guys had no chin turret?
No.
You like the Memphis Belle, I guess. No chin turret.
That's right. The chin turret was supposed to meet the head-on attack. And in fact, as far as I can see, I was the only one firing my guns from my rear turret because I didn't hear anybody. The waist gunners were out this way, and these guys were behind us. So I was the one that was doing all of the shooting. Yeah.
They did have I guess they had 2 guns for the Navigator and the Bombardier in the very front by the blister.
And that was useless.
Yeah, not much.
No.
And I think that chin turret was synchronized with the top turret, wasn't it? Or was it independent?
I don't know. I never got to use the chin turret. They took the damn airplane away.
So they gave you, is light still going on?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, let me know if that shuts off. Right?
Okay.
It's going to be pretty important if it does. But tell me, I guess so you guys got this beat up old, tell me about the plane that you guys got. Describe it for me.
Well, just an ordinary B-17. but it had patches here and patches there that, it's been through the mill. I guess we thought that was lucky, but I guess it wasn't. Somebody had flown it for quite a while.
What was the reaction with everybody when you first saw it?
Never did think much of it. They took our plane away, gave us another one.
But was there grumbling or?
No. We didn't know any better.
What was the base that you guys were stationed at?
Stoke-on-Trent.
What was that like? Describe that.
Quonset huts. Didn't see much of anything. I met an Englishman whose family had come into the country away out of London as a doctor, and I went squirrel hunting with him, and I was pretty sharp with the shotguns because we had always tried to get in our shotguns at every place we went. We'd get a shotgun and shoot, and I caught a squirrel in mid-jump, but he was taken home to eat it, so I think they were very nice gentlemen. And there wasn't much. I didn't get off the base at all. I wasn't there long enough to be truthful. It's just one of the things. We had the Quonset hut, and then the usual trick. Guys would come in with a handful of 45 caliber and throw it into the potbelly stove and yell flak, and everybody run like hell, and pow, 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 holes in the stove.
That's how they greeted you as the new guys, I guess.
Well, no, everybody used to pull that crap, Flag.
That's the first time I heard that.
Oh yeah, that was quite common. It was quite common. And then they'd wake you up in the middle of the night, and you'd go for breakfast, and then you'd go in there and you'd open that curtain, and everybody go. The first one wasn't bad, we didn't know what to expect. It was actually a milk run. Second one, they canceled the thing, had an abort, but we didn't hear it, so we dropped the bombs anyway, and we got the presidential citation for that. Everybody else went back with their bombs, so that was the second, and the third about. It was really something. In the morning, there were the activities that went on. The armorers would come out with the barrels of the guns and stick them into the casings that are already in the plane, to the part that you see with the holes in it. They'd stick the barrels in there. They were cleaned and oiled and everything. And the guys would be rolling these 500-pounders out, lifting them into these bodies. And the gas is topped off and everything else. And then some idiot somewhere around there would let off a blasted gun, and everybody would drop to the floor. There's always a nut like that. And you'd get in the plane and take off. And it was dark most of the time. So all of this thing happened before the sun came up, and usually it was cloudy. So you were climbing into the sky, and maybe couple of hundred planes around you doing the same thing, and you're worried about that.
Because you were already kind of tight. I guess you guys took off.
Well, one after the other, but still, there are other squadrons from other aerodromes coming off too, because they put up 500 planes, 1,000 planes sometimes. They really did a job, I tell you. And not many people made it to complete their mission. Very few. The odds were so much against you finishing. Yeah. So,
what was the breakfast like?
Everything you ever wanted. I called it the Last Supper. When I saw the breakfast they put up, I said, oh, this is going to be bad. This is going to be a bad day. Every juice, every egg, every meat, whatever you wanted, they fed you. See, that's the difference between the Air Force and the common foot soldier. We went out and we went, 1,000 miles into enemy territory and whatever. We came home to supper. It's like we're going to work. You go to sleep in a clean bed. And but most of them didn't come back, so it didn't matter anyhow.
But it must have been, and one of the other guys remarked about that, how that has to have its own kind of stress in a way, because a foot soldier, even though he's got to slog through it every day, but like anything, I guess maybe you don't get used to it, but it just becomes something that you deal with it all the time.
Well, I tell you, I was amazed at the fact that everybody went up when it was supposed to, and you went and you did it, because it was never you. You know what I'm talking about? I didn't expect to get shot down. I just didn't expect to get shot down. And everybody went up every day. All these guys went up, the pilots, co-pilots, gunners, whatever. Never said a word, no fear, just go. So it was the norm. I don't know if anybody was, shuddering or terrified or what. Everybody went up day after day. A lot of guys had a lot of missions in it, maybe fighters or whatever, whatever you can meet. But they went up.
I guess you just didn't think about it much. You didn't think about it.
No, never thought about it. Hey, I'll tell you a story about firing your gun at 10,000 feet. In the machine gun, there's a little thing like this called a belt holding pole. When the bullet is in there, this thing keeps the ammunition from falling out of the gun. And when you get up at 20, 24,000, that spring becomes like a piece of nothing. It snaps, so your ammunition will fall out. You wouldn't believe this or not, everybody carried a condom. And when that spring would break, they take the condom and push it under that thing, and it worked just as well as the spring. Because the rubber, gave it, and when it was needed. So we all carried a condom for that. One guy was shot down. They took him to the mayor of the town, and they searched his pocket. They found the condom in his pocket and smacked him.
They probably thought he was there for the women.
It was a strange thing. The belt holding pole.
Now, out of curiosity, did you guys on your own get the condoms, or were they issued to you as part of your?
No, they never issued them.
Okay. Because it sounds like one of those things, like in one of those bureaucratic things of, well, if these guys do get shot down, they get involved. We don't want them to get disease, so we'll issue condoms for them in case they get involved with local women.
They figured we're coming to Germany to screw them. God.
Oh boy. I guess as this might sound a little bit prosaic, I guess, but as an engineer, and since most people who would see this obviously are not going to know anything about it, tell me a little bit about what it is to be a flight engineer, what your duties are.
Well, to start with, I used to stand behind the pilot and co-pilot, watch the instruments with him. On takeoff, I'd watch the cylinder head pressures and all the other instruments that are there. On landing, I would call off the airspeeds to him when he came to landing, 150, 140, 130, and just so he didn't have to look at the airspeed indicator. He could pay attention to what he was doing. Then I had to transfer gasoline from one tank to another, things like that. And
why did you do that, by the way?
Huh?
Why did you do that, transfer the?
Well, to equalize the weight, and sometimes you would want to use a tank for landing. So, for takeoff or landing, you sure didn't have the water in it, the condensation. So you wanted the purest gasoline at the time of takeoff. The pre-flight, I would have to go under the wing and open each bottom of the wing tank, open the petcock, and let the water run out. And I could watch the water was white, and then it turned amber. I knew that all the water was out, and I'd lock it again and put the wire through it and tighten the wire so that it couldn't untie. And I do that to all the and also gassing the plane, which I didn't have to do because the crews there did it, but I used to do it with the B-18s. And inspections. You have that book of inspections. I had to take the wheels off, check the bearings, repack the bearings and the grease and everything else on the landing gear. Check they had wires leading to controls. I had to run my hand along the wires to see that they weren't frayed or broken. Look at the skin of the plane, check the skin of the plane, run a pre-flight check. Just about everything, with the crank handle and whatever I had to do, I knew what I had to do. So all he had to do was say, open the landing, drop the bombs, this, that, and everything else. So I knew where those things were. And always brings the other things to mind. When we were in Guyana, it was all sand and nothing made but our shacks that we had put together with prefabs, tar paper. And I was lying on my side looking down the runway where the door was open. And I see this plane come in for landing and goes down on one wheel and starts to burn. And I look at that, I get up and I start running towards the plane. And the pilot and another passenger get out of the plane and they take off running down the other end of the runway. What the hell's going on? They think the plane's going to blow up or something. Well, the gas was dripping out of one side of the plane and it was burning the wheel, the metal in the wheel. I don't know what kind of metal it started to burn too. Like a phosphorus or something. And they took off. And I look inside and I smell cellophane. And I look and there are cases and cases of dynamite. So meanwhile, there's a semicircle of guys that came out to look. I said, hey guys, come on, let's get this stuff out of here. They'll take out the whole camp, So I start handing cases, and we get all the dynamite out of the. And meanwhile, here comes our little fire engine, and one of the officers in an asbestos suit, and he's got the foam hose, and he puts the fire out. So what they actually it would have burned, it wouldn't have blown up actually, unless you have a fuse or something. They're not supposed to carry fuses with that. But they were private contractors. And all of a sudden, we're all called out about a month later. We're all on parade. And this officer who used the hose to put out the fire is receiving a medal for his bravery in putting out the fire. And, oh, my God.
And here you guys were taking it out by hand, and oh boy,
he got the medal. It was all out by the time he came along.
I guess the private contract. That's why you were a private contract. That's why they ran like hell.
We used to have a little non-coms bar in Guyana, and one day this Lockheed Electric comes in, with its twin tail. And the smoke is pouring out of one of its engines. He's just smoking, and he comes in for a landing. So, I don't know, we're looking to see who's in the plane. We don't see any people there coming into the jungle runway here. And it's Madame Chiang Kai-shek. She's bringing her children to school in the United States. So, the flight engineer on the plane says, we're having a problem with the engine. So we get out our stands, and my crew and everything, and we feel the end. One of them is very cold. And they take the cylinder head off and get the piston up. And one of the oil wiper rings is turned in backwards and is pumping oil into the engine. So we had the same engines on the 18s, 1,000 horsepower jobs. So we got the ring, and we put the proper ring in, put it back together again. And I can't get the goddamn cowling back on the end. The engineer comes out with a crowbar, whacks it right into place. And what do you say, madam? We sent her up to the non-com club to sit there and wait till we finished. And we didn't know you call her madam, you know. We didn't know anything about it at that time. So we finished the job and started the engine, and she worked fine. And oil pressure, everything was okay. And here comes another one in from Miami, another Lockheed Electra. Apparently they had called. So she says, these gentlemen were nice enough to fix my airplane. I'm going to go home on the airplane that they fixed. I said, okay. Start up the engine, take off, head for Miami. This other plane that came in from Miami can't start. It can't start. It has to jump my head, turn around and walk away.
The rescue plane.
Yeah, the rescue plane wouldn't start.